You notice, by the way, the increasingly irrational arguments by Obama and his supporters? I mean, you really have to be dunce-like to buy into this stuff. And Obama argues his case, so angrily and forcefully. What is that cut? Do we have that cut where he's claiming that it's not him, but it's the Republicans who are running up the debt? Yeah, in Denver yesterday, on another trip that you and I paid for. Cut 2, go.
My opponent won't admit it, but it's been starting to appear in places, real liberal outlets like the Wall Street Journal.
Hold on a second. Hold it. Now that you got to admit, that's a gut buster right there. All right, go ahead.
Federal spending has risen at the lowest pace in nearly 60 years. Think about that.
Wait a minute. The seals are... Hold on, stop. Are those seals? Now that's really a gut buster, Laffer. Federal spending. We talked about this yesterday. I don't like to repeat territory we've already conquered, and I'm not going to, but federal spending has risen at the lowest pace in nearly 60 years. I figured out an example. So even the drones out there, the dumbest among us, can pick up on this. Remember that guy called yesterday, he kept repeating himself? Let's try it this way. Let's say you have an income of $10. But you spend $20. That's a massive increase, isn't it? Yes. But the following year you spend $20.50. And the year after that you spend $21. And the year after that you spend $21.50. And then you say, see this? See this, fellow SEALs? Not the good SEALs, the SEALs. Those SEALs. Lowest pace of increase year after year in nearly 60 years. Now, you have to be illiterate economically and mathematically to buy into that one. We talked about what happened in the 2009 budget, that Bush hadn't signed it, had massive amounts of earmarks, that had the stimulus spending, it had this spending, that spending, and every other kind of spending you can imagine. We're not going to be fooled by this. We know George Bush didn't approve the stimulus spending or TARP 2 or those earmarks. That's all on Obama. Yet he goes in front of these people and he lies and they clap. And he lies and they clap again. And the Democrat Party's proud of the nominee or the soon-to-be nominee for the re-election, their president. Proud of this. Nobody lies like Barack Obama. I used to think Clinton did, but it turns out Clinton was not a good liar. They caught him. Caught him under oath. Cost him dearly. But Obama lies, and he does it really smoothly, doesn't he? Really smoothly. So, you see, ladies and gentlemen, it turns out that Ronald Reagan was the big spender and Barack Obama was a budget cutter. Didn't you know that? It's true. Just ask Obama and his flex. Ameritopia. I guess I could have called Ameritopia that had the subtitle Obama in Wonderland. What do you think about that, Mr. Producer? Obama in Wonderland. What's up is down and what's down is up. Because Reagan, the most conservative president in modern history, turns out he was the socialist, and Obama, the most left-wing president in modern history, who studied Marx and Alinsky and embraced them, he's the conservative. Who knew? What a brilliant campaign tactic. I don't know about you, Mr. Producer. That's really going to work, don't you think? Particularly on the illiterate. And unfortunately, there's drones all around us. Some are illiterate. Some are just suckers. So let's start at the beginning. Now, we know when to laugh and when to clap during this particular clip. Apparently, the audience that he's pandering to doesn't know when to laugh and doesn't know when to clap. They get it all screwed up. Cut 2, go.
My opponent won't admit it, but it's been starting to appear in places, real liberal outlets like the Wall Street Journal. Since I've been president, federal spending has risen at the lowest pace in nearly 60 years. Think about that. I just point out that it always goes up least under Democratic presidents. This other side, I don't know how they've been bamboozling folks into thinking that they are the responsible, fiscally disciplined party. They run up these wild debts. And then when we take over, we got to clean it up. And they point and say, look how irresponsible they are. Look at the facts. Look at the numbers. And now I want to finish the job.
That job would be a snow job. I know it's frustrating. I know it upsets you to hear that. But I want to try and soothe your concerns a little bit that most people who are thinking aren't buying that. Now, the problem is most people who aren't thinking are going to vote for it. But most people who are thinking, that's just disbelief there. What? What did he say? The only person who can put those numbers together and come up with his conclusion is Obama and Professor Irwin Corey, who I've talked about over the years many, many times. That's right. Must be using the new math. Let's see what else he had to say. Poor guy, he inherited so much when he became president. The greatest country on the face of the earth, the greatest economic system on the face of the earth, the greatest constitution ever ratified, the Declaration of Independence, a magnificent population of and citizens and so on. But look what he inherited, the poor thing. Cut 3, go.
We're going to pay down our debt in a way that is balanced and responsible.
Stop. How are we going to pay down this debt? Period. How are we going to do that under you, Mr. Budget Cutter, Mr. Fiscal Conservative, the real Ronald Reagan? How are we going to do that? Well, I don't know, but it's going to be balanced and responsible. Oh, okay. Well, that settles that. Go ahead.
I inherited a $1 trillion deficit.
Oh.
I signed $2 trillion in spending cuts. It takes a Democrat to fix these problems after they have run up the tab.
Yes, that's the history of America, ladies and gentlemen. The Republicans run up the tab and the Democrats come in and they slash spending. They kill programs. That's the history of America. We all know this. Now, he cut $1 trillion. He inherited $1 trillion. He cut $2 trillion. Here's the problem with throwing around figures like this. You can't nail this down. Because the truth is, not only did he increase the debt by $5.1 trillion, in the out years, he's going to increase it by another $20 to $26 trillion. So profligate is his spending, so massive is Obamacare and what he wants to do to this country. We don't know if it's $20 trillion or $26 trillion over the next decade. But think about that. $20 to $26 trillion over 10 years. No society can survive that. Whomever you are, wherever you live, however you make an income, whether you're retired, if you're in college and you hope to have a job one day, all of that's going to be wiped out. All of it. The currency will be destroyed. All sense of fiscal policy will be non-existent. There won't be a damn thing that Federal Reserve can do. Hey, let's print more money. There's no more to print. We're out of paper. Nobody will be able to do anything. And he poses there as a fiscally responsible budget cutter? You got to be kidding me. He's going to run on that? Because some moron at Market Watch or whatever put together a political column that we discussed yesterday? Yeah, that 2009, that belongs to Bush. The stimulus, oh, that's all Bush. If Barack Obama were the CEO of Bain Capital, and he played with numbers like this, he'd be Barack Hussein Obama with a prison number under his chin and an orange suit. Because you can't do this in the private sector and get away with it. You cannot lie to your investors, to your shareholders, the way Obama lies to us, to we the people, and get away with it. As I've said many times before, there's two types of citizens in this country. Those of us who live in the private sector and those who don't. Obama's experience in the private sector, the productive part of the private sector, is non-existent. He lives in the world of lies, twisting words, playing with language. It comes easy to him. He's done it all his life. He's a rabble-rouser in South Chicago. He's a state senator. As a U.S. senator for 14 and a half days, and now as president. This is not second nature to him, it's first nature. There is no way he could serve in any corporation and do what he does, or any of these political hacks for that matter. And you know what's amazing? All these unfunded liabilities off the books, as we've talked about, as I've written about in 2 books. USA Today pointed it out today, by the way. You can't do that in the private sector. And despite the fact that they take the biggest parts of the debt off the table and pretend they don't exist, they still can't balance the budget. They still spend in a way that is so reckless and unconscionable. And then he stands there in front of his clapping seals, going on and on about how he really is a fiscal hawk and how Ronald Reagan was a big-time spender. It's disgusting. And tens of millions of people will vote for him anyway. Because they're lost. They don't want to live in a free country.